Have you ever noticed how we give so much credit to mixed signals? We treat them like some sort of complex puzzle we need to solve, like there's a secret reward at the end if we just crack the code. But the truth is, if someone is truly interested, there is no code. You don't need to sit there with your friends analyzing texts, tone, timing. You don't have to wonder what a message at midnight means, or why he was all over you last weekend and now you're just a ghost in his phone. Mixed signals are not romantic, they're not intriguing, they are simply a red flag with a filter. And yet we take them in, we spin them around in our minds, and we attach meaning to behavior that's actually just inconsistent at best and emotionally unavailable at worst. Here's the thing, the moment you start interpreting inconsistency as maybe he's just scared, or maybe he's been hurt before, you start investing in someone who hasn't shown they deserve that level of grace from you. You hand over your time, your peace of mind, and your emotional energy for breadcrumbs, thinking the full loaf is just around the corner. Let me say this clearly. A man who wants you, who genuinely values you, won't confuse you. You won't sit there wondering if you're on his mind. You won't need a group chat to help decipher his last message. Love is not meant to feel like you're in a constant guessing game. The moment you feel like you're being put in that position, when every interaction leaves you unsure of where you stand, that's not chemistry, that's chaos. And chaos is not the same as connection. You see, people who are playing games with your heart, whether consciously or subconsciously, thrive off your confusion. The less certain you are, the more you're inclined to chase clarity. And here's the kicker, that chasing gives them the upper hand. Suddenly, you're proving yourself. You're showing up more, texting first, planning things, being emotionally available, hoping it'll make him open up or finally choose you. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When a guy knows that you're interpreting his lack of clarity as something that still gives him a chance with you, he's already won. He knows he doesn't have to give you consistency, effort, or commitment to still be in your life. And as long as he can access you without having to be clear, he has no reason to step up. So what do? You stop giving inconsistent behavior the benefit of the doubt. You stop answering every third message with enthusiasm. You stop building a castle in your mind off the back of one good weekend. You match energy. And when the energy is inconsistent, you don't dance around it, you distance yourself from it. The moment you stop responding to mixed signals like their invitations is the moment the game stops. You don't punish him. You don't fight. You simply recalibrate your attention because you know your value. And when you know your value, you're not afraid to be alone rather than being with someone who's half in, half out. You stop initiating. You stop over-explaining. You stop writing emotional novels in response to why. When the signals are unclear, you step into clarity on your own. You decide, if you can't show up in a way that aligns with how I want to feel in a relationship, I'm not going to keep making space for you in my life. You don't owe anyone endless patience in the dating stage. That's the time people are supposed to be showing you who they are, not leaving you in limbo. If you're already confused when there's no real commitment yet, ask yourself this. What happens when it gets harder? What happens when you really need someone to show up? Here's what's even more powerful. When you stop tolerating mixed signals, you set a new standard. And not just for him, for yourself, for how you want to be treated. You send a message that says, my peace is more important than your potential. That doesn't mean you're cold. That doesn't mean you're harsh. It means you value yourself too much to entertain someone who doesn't know what they want, or worse, knows exactly what they want but just doesn't want to give it to you. Because let's be real, confusion is a choice. Communication is always a choice, and so is clarity. The guy who says, I'm just not great at texting, but is active on Instagram, he's choosing who he communicates with and how often. The guy who says, I'm just not ready for a relationship, but keeps flirting, calling, even hooking up, he's not confused. He's hoping you stay confused long enough to keep giving him all the perks of closeness with none of the responsibility. That's why the most powerful thing you can do isn't to ask him where this is going, it's to start acting like you already have your answer. Because if someone keeps you guessing, you don't play the game back. You exit the room. You step into your self-respect and let silence say what words don't need to. And sometimes walking away speaks more powerfully than any ultimatum ever could. So if you find yourself in this space right now, asking yourself why he's hot one day and cold the next, why he pulls you in only to push you away, remember this. Consistency is not too much to ask for. Effort is not a luxury. And confusion is not a sign to try harder. It's a sign to let go. The moment you stop reacting to uncertainty as if it's romance is the moment you outsmart the game entirely. You know, one of the biggest traps people fall into, especially when you're emotionally invested in someone, is giving based on how you feel instead of what you're actually receiving. And that right there is the fast track to heartbreak. I'm talking about the difference between matching emotion and matching investment. And if you really want to outsmart someone who's playing games with your heart, this is a game changer. Let me explain what I mean. Let's say you meet someone and you feel this electric connection, the kind that makes you replay conversations in your head, check your phone every 5 minutes. Imagine what it would be like to travel together or meet each other's family. That emotional wave hits hard and fast, and it's so tempting to start showing up for them in big ways. You become overly available. You initiate conversations. You give more time, more energy, more attention, not because they've done anything extraordinary to earn it, but because you feel something. But here's the reality. Emotions are not the same as evidence. You might feel amazing around this person, and you might genuinely believe there's something special between you. But none of that justifies pouring your heart, your time, and your energy into someone who's only giving you scraps. When you start over-giving based on your feelings instead of their actions, you're giving them unearned power. You're handing them control of the dynamic without them ever showing up for you in a real way. Let me say that again, because it's important. When you give based on how much you feel instead of how much they've shown up, you give away your power. The goal here is not to stop feeling. It's not to become emotionally detached or play the cool girl who doesn't care about anyone. The goal is to get smart about how you act on those feelings. Emotional maturity means knowing that your feelings are your responsibility. They don't automatically entitle the other person to more of you. Imagine someone texts you once a week, keeps conversations shallow, and never makes concrete plans. Yet when you see them, there's this incredible chemistry. That spark makes you think, maybe this could go somewhere. So you keep showing up, replying quickly, trying to impress, trying to be enough so that they'll finally see what's in front of them. But they don't. Why? Because they don't have to. You're already doing the heavy lifting. That's the moment you need to check yourself and ask, am I matching what I feel, or am I matching what they're giving? If they're giving you 20% effort, you don't respond with 100%. You don't text them paragraphs when they're sending you one-liners. You don't keep making time when they're not making plans. You match investment, not emotion. Now, I know this is hard, especially when you like someone, especially when you see potential. But potential isn't commitment. Potential isn't effort. And potential doesn't keep you warm at night. We have to stop building castles out of someone's charisma and start looking at their consistency. So here's a little practical mindset shift you can use. Every time you feel that urge to do more, to go out of your way to prove your worth, pause and ask, what have they actually shown me? Because if you keep giving more than what's being given to you, you're not being generous, you're being blind. And here's the kicker. When you stop over-investing, you actually give the other person room to step up. When you stop chasing, they have to choose. When you stop filling in all the gaps, they either rise to meet you or they disappear. Either way, you get your answer without wasting months stuck in limbo. There's this thing people say, but I don't want to play games, and I agree. This isn't about playing games. It's about playing smart, because choosing not to match investment isn't a trick. It's self-respect. It's boundaries. It's saying, I care about you, but I care about me more. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you tolerate inconsistency, they'll stay inconsistent. If you reward minimal effort with maximum access, they'll keep giving you the bare minimum. But if you start matching their energy, not in a bitter way, but in a balanced way, you change the dynamic completely. Suddenly they have to ask themselves, why isn't she chasing me anymore? Why does she seem less available? And if they truly care, they'll step up. If they don't, you just saved yourself a world of pain. And let's not ignore the deeper emotional shift that happens when you match investment. You start reclaiming your time, your dignity, your focus. You stop checking your phone every minute, wondering if they'll reply. You start redirecting that energy back into you, into your life, your growth, your peace. You stop being someone who waits to be chosen and start being someone who chooses. The truth is, someone who's playing games with your heart isn't interested in love. They're interested in attention. They thrive on ambiguity because clarity requires them to be accountable. But once you start matching their effort, once you stop rewarding confusion with connection, they either grow up or fade out. And either outcome is a win for you. So the next time you find yourself pouring more into someone than they're giving back, catch yourself. Ask, am I giving from emotion or am I giving from evidence? Because your feelings are valid, but they are not instructions. Use them as information, not as justification. The most powerful thing you can do isn't to convince someone to value you. It's to value yourself so much that you stop entertaining anyone who doesn't. Let me ask you something simple. When you like someone, how quickly do you respond to their texts? Most people will say right away. And that's beautiful in a way. It shows enthusiasm, excitement, that little spark that says, I care. But here's the truth nobody likes to admit. If someone's playing games with you, responding right away becomes a trap. It becomes part of their control. Because when someone is inconsistent, when they send you mixed signals, when they disappear and reappear like clockwork, they're not building a connection. They're manipulating the tempo. And the moment you start dancing to their rhythm, you lose your own. People who play games love to keep you guessing. They'll message you one day with charm, flirtation, maybe even vulnerability, and then disappear the next. You're left wondering, did I say something wrong? Are they just busy? Should I double text? And the second that question enters your head, the game is working. Because now you're not in control of your own experience, you're reacting to theirs. But here's the shift. You get to set the tempo. You decide how often you want to engage, how much energy you give, and how accessible you are. That's not cold, that's powerful. That's presence. Think about it like this. If every time they send a message, you're jumping to respond, you're conditioning them to believe that your time, your energy, your attention is always available, no matter how little they give. That doesn't build value. That tells them they don't have to invest because you're already sold. Now, I'm not saying you should play hard to get. This isn't about games. It's about standards. You respond with warmth and authenticity, but you don't rush to engage someone who isn't showing consistency. Why? Because consistency is the oxygen of a healthy relationship. If someone's communication feels like a roller coaster, the last thing you should do is lean in further. You step back, you breathe, and you observe. You let their pattern show itself without trying to fill the gaps. Let's take an example. Say you're talking to a guy who messages you every couple of days. You respond within minutes, maybe even seconds. You feel anxious when he doesn't reply, but when he finally does, it's like a reward. You feel validated. It's like, okay, he still likes me. But that feeling of relief is addictive. It keeps you tied to someone who's giving you crumbs when you deserve a feast. You've handed over the emotional steering wheel, and now you're just holding on for the ride. But what if you stopped? What if you didn't respond immediately? Not because you're playing a game, but because you've decided you're not in a rush to accommodate someone who isn't prioritizing you. Suddenly, the power dynamic shifts. You're not waiting. You're not chasing. You're simply living your life and letting people meet you, not manage you. See, when someone's truly interested, they don't leave you in limbo. They don't disappear and expect applause when they return. They reach out consistently. They care about how you feel. They don't want you confused. They want you comfortable. So when someone sends you a hey at 11 p.m. after going dark for 2 days, ask yourself, is this how I want to be treated? Because responding instantly says, this is enough for me. But pausing, taking a breath, not replying immediately, says, I have standards. There's a difference between being responsive and being reactive. Responsive means you engage with thought, intention, and clarity. Reactive means you jump in without checking in with yourself. If your default is, I have to reply fast so he doesn't lose interest, you're already trying to keep someone who isn't trying to keep you. That's where the work begins. You start to notice your patterns. That little urge to respond right away, pause. That instinct to double text when he's been silent, pause. Not to punish, not to manipulate, but to reclaim your center, to remind yourself, I am not here to chase, I am here to attract. And attraction comes from alignment, not anxiety. Now, some people will say, but if I don't respond quickly, won't he lose interest? And my answer is, if your slow reply causes him to walk away, he wasn't invested to begin with. You didn't lose anything. You revealed something. You exposed the superficiality of his effort. And that's a gift, because every time you pull back from someone who's breadcrumbing you, you make space for someone who's ready to give more. And let me say this, setting the tempo isn't about silence or withdrawal. It's about energy. It's about emotional discipline. It's about choosing where your focus goes and protecting it. If you're always on edge, waiting for the next message, you're leaking energy. That's not love, it's emotional labor. You don't owe your time to people who are inconsistent. You don't need to be on call for someone who treats communication like a slot machine. You are not a convenience. You are not a backup. You are not a maybe. And if someone wants to be in your life, they'll act like it. They'll match your consistency. They'll value your time. They won't risk losing you by being careless. But it starts with you. You teach people how to treat you by how you respond. And when you stop rewarding inconsistency with attention, you stop being a player in someone else's game. You become the one setting the rules. The tempo isn't about being distant. It's about being discerning. It's about saying, I will meet effort with effort, but I won't overextend to fill in your gaps. That shift changes everything. Because once you master your response, once you own your pace, you stop chasing connections and start attracting commitment. You stop being pulled and start choosing. You stop waiting and start living. So the next time someone texts you after a long silence, ask yourself, do I really want to reward this pattern? Or do I want to raise my standard? Because love isn't just about how much you feel, it's about how much you value yourself in the process. Let them feel your absence the way you felt their inconsistency. You're not here to figure him out. You're here to find someone who shows up. That's the difference between playing defense in your love life and stepping into your worth. Too many women get caught in this exhausting cycle where they confuse emotional labor with love. They think, if I can just understand him more, if I can decode his past, if I can be the one to finally get through to him, maybe then he'll change. But here's the hard truth. The moment you start trying to solve someone, you stop being the prize and you become the one chasing something that isn't even guaranteed to be real. Let me be clear. Relationships aren't puzzles. People aren't mystery boxes you need to crack open to find love inside. If he's inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or playing games, that's not a cue for you to work harder. That's a cue for you to wake up. The more you try to prove you're the exception, that you're the one woman who can fix him, who can show him how to love, the more power you give away. And what happens? He sits back, he gets to do less, he gets to be uncertain, inconsistent, vague. Meanwhile, you're auditioning, shrinking, questioning your worth every time he pulls away. But you have to remember something. People don't change because you invest more. They change when they decide to. And that decision is not in your control. It never was. The more energy you pour into analyzing his texts, decoding his silences, and wondering what you did wrong, the less energy you have for building a relationship that actually gives back. You become so consumed with trying to be chosen by him that you forget to choose yourself. Let's look at what being the prize really means. It means holding your ground even when you want to reach out first. It means noticing the red flags and not brushing them off because you're afraid of losing him. It means being clear on your standards, even if that means walking away from someone who had potential, because potential doesn't pay rent in a relationship. Presence does. And presence looks like consistency, like showing up, like making you feel safe instead of confused. When you show up as the prize, you don't chase, you don't over-explain, you don't twist yourself into something smaller just to keep him interested. You observe, you let time reveal his truth, you listen to the feeling you get when you're around him. Does it feel anxious? Like you're constantly second-guessing yourself? That's not love, that's survival mode. That's you trying to earn breadcrumbs instead of expecting the whole meal. There's this myth that if you're strong enough, patient enough, or loving enough, you can get through to the guy who's emotionally unavailable. But think about it. If someone wanted to love you fully, would they really need that much convincing? Wouldn't they already be doing it? Love doesn't come after 1,000 little tests. It comes when someone is ready. And you don't want to be someone's practice run. You want to be with someone who shows up from the start, not someone you have to coach through every emotional step. Now, I know it's not easy. When you're invested, when you've built up an idea of what this could be, letting go feels like failure, but it's not. Letting go is power. Walking away from someone who can't meet you where you are isn't loss, it's leadership. It's you saying, I'm not available for games. I don't negotiate with confusion. I don't fight to be seen. And guess what happens when you do that? You raise your value in your own eyes. You stop sitting on the sidelines waiting to be picked and start living like someone who knows they're worthy of a great love, not a chaotic one. You reclaim your time, your energy, and your peace. And those are the things that attract a high-quality connection. Not performing, not proving, presence, confidence, self-respect. So the next time you feel yourself trying to figure him out, pause. Step back. Remind yourself, you're not here to solve him. You're here to see if he's capable of showing up. If he isn't, that's your answer. And trust me, when you stop playing the game, you win it. Every time. If there's one thing I see far too often, it's amazing women who are terrified of asking direct questions, especially early on. Why? Because somewhere along the line, they were taught that asking for clarity makes them look needy, or worse, desperate. So instead of asking, where is this going? Or what are you looking for right now? They sit back, wait, hope, and try to read between the lines of every message, every glance, every emoji. But here's the truth. A man who is playing games thrives in ambiguity. That's his playground. He doesn't want clear communication because clear communication forces him to commit to something. Even if that something is, I'm not looking for anything serious. The moment you ask direct questions, the moment you introduce clarity, you shine a light on his intentions. And men who are just here to waste your time hate the spotlight. The irony is, the very thing most women are afraid to do, asking directly, is the most powerful move they can make. It flips the script. It tells the guy, I value my time. I'm not here to play detective. I'm not looking to win you over. I'm trying to find someone who aligns with me. Now look, I'm not saying you need to interrogate someone on the first date. It's not about turning the vibe into a job interview. It's about reading the signs and knowing when to lean into your power. If you've been talking to someone for a few weeks and you find yourself constantly wondering where they stand, that's your cue. If you've been sleeping with someone, but they dodge the what are we conversation like it's on fire, that's your signal. And if someone gives you vague, non-committal answers like, let's just see where it goes, or I'm not into labels, hear that for what it really is. A polite way of saying, I want the benefits without the responsibility. Don't be afraid to ask, What are you looking for in this season of your life? It's a gentle question, but it's a direct one. You're not demanding anything from them. You're simply asking for clarity so you can decide whether to keep investing your energy. If he stumbles, if he deflects, if he gives you an answer that makes your gut twist even slightly, believe it. You're not crazy. You're not overthinking. Your intuition is your most loyal protector. The reason this works so well is because it instantly separates the real from the fake. A guy with genuine intentions will appreciate the clarity. He'll welcome the honesty. A man who's emotionally mature won't feel threatened by your question. He'll respect it. But a man who just wanted to keep you around for his convenience, he'll flinch, he'll shift. He'll try to flip it back on you and say things like, why are you putting pressure on this? That's not pressure. That's you setting the standard. That's you saying, I don't do blurry, I do bold. I don't need promises, but I do need honesty. And here's where it gets even more powerful. When you ask directly and you're willing to walk away based on the answer, that's when the game ends. Most women lose their power not because they asked, but because they asked and then ignored the answer. If he says he doesn't want something serious and you keep showing up, hoping he'll change his mind, he doesn't have to play games anymore. You've already agreed to them. You handed him the rules, and now he's just playing them better than you. So if you want to outsmart a man who's playing games with your heart, stop trying to decode his behavior and start defining your own standards. Don't let chemistry talk you out of clarity. Don't let loneliness override your logic. Ask the question, get the answer, and then, and this is key, act on the truth, not on your potential to change him. You don't need to manipulate him into stepping up. You don't need to convince him of your worth. The right man won't need a PowerPoint presentation to see your value. He'll know. He'll show. And if he doesn't, thank him for the early warning and walk away like a woman who knows exactly what she brings to the table. Clarity is your superpower. Use it. Most of the pain we experience in dating doesn't actually come from what the other person did. It comes from the story we told ourselves about what it could be. And this is where things get tricky because the mind is a master at building castles in the clouds. You meet someone, there's chemistry, there's charm, there's that spark, and immediately, without even realizing it, you're projecting a version of who they are that's rooted more in hope than evidence. You're not falling for the man in front of you. You're falling for what he might become if he stepped up, if he matured, if he stopped playing games. And that's dangerous because now you're emotionally investing in a fantasy, not a person. And the more you fall for the fantasy, the harder it becomes to pull away, even when he's clearly not showing up in the way you deserve. It's like you bought a lottery ticket, and even though the numbers don't match, you keep staring at it thinking, but what if? And every time he gives you just enough, that one sweet message, that one deep conversation, that one night where it actually feels like you're connecting, your brain lights up with possibility again. See, he can be that guy, and that one moment of potential becomes the reason you ignore the other 10 where he disappeared, acted cold, or just didn't show any real care. You're not reacting to the reality, you're reacting to the highlight reel, the moments that make you feel good. Even if they're few and far between, become your new baseline. So now, every time he gives you crumbs, it feels like a feast. You lower your standards not because you want less, but because you've become addicted to chasing more from someone who's not offering it. This is how women end up stuck. Not because they're not smart or strong, but because they've emotionally committed to an idea of someone. And the longer you stay, the more your ego gets involved. Now, it's not just about him showing up. It's about you being right. I've spent this much time. I've given this much effort. I've fought for this. There has to be something real here. You want the story to mean something. But the truth is, just because you showed up with honesty doesn't mean he did. The way out is simple, but not easy. You have to get brutally honest with yourself. Strip away the charm, the chemistry, the potential, and ask, what is he actually giving me right now? Not in theory, not what he said he wants someday, not what he promised when things were good, but right now, in real time. What's the reality? Is he consistent? Is he making you feel secure? Is he creating clarity or confusion? Does he follow through or does he flake? Is he there on the hard days or only when it's convenient? Because if you don't respond to reality, you will always be negotiating with a version of him that doesn't exist. And as long as you're trying to make that version real, you'll keep giving chances he hasn't earned, making excuses he hasn't asked for, and breaking your own heart in the process. So if you're serious about outsmarting the guy who's playing games with your heart, this is your power move. Stop playing along. Refuse to fall for the fantasy. Refuse to participate in a relationship where you do all the work, where your value is based on your patience and your love is constantly on hold waiting for him to catch up. You have to be willing to lose the wrong person to make space for the right one. And that means walking away not when it's easy, but when it's clear, when you realize the only thing keeping you there is your attachment to what could be. Let go of the version of him you created in your mind. He's not that man, at least not right now, and maybe never. Start responding to what's real, because your time, your energy, your heart, they deserve to be invested in someone who's showing up now, not someone who might someday. When you start reacting to reality, you stop getting played.